Hi, good morning to my channel. I recently got this watch. It's a Tag Aquaracer. This year, it's 2016, and I wanted to show a video describing it to some of my viewers. But I also wanted to compare it to my older watch, which is also a Tag Aquaracer, and we can sort of see the differences in the two watches here. This original watch that I got was a Tag Aquaracer that I got in 2004. I bought it in New York. It's an automatic, and it's waterproof to 200 meters, and I really love this watch. I've been wearing it every day, whether I wear it to work or when I'm out with my family. I also go kayak fishing, and I take it out to the ocean when we go to the beach. And it's just never been a problem. Because it's an automatic, I never need to replace the battery. I just have to make sure that it's wound, but it keeps its energy for a long time. Also, when I go to the ocean, all I've had to do is really just wash it and keep it clean, and it's just really a great watch. Anyways, it's been about 12 years, and this year I was shopping and I just saw this watch, which is the newer Aquaracer. It's a Calibre 5, and it's also an automatic. It's supposed to be good for 300 meters. I go scuba diving from time to time, but not too often, but it's good to always know that. So what I wanted to do was sort of like just compare the two. Both of them are really great watches so far. I've owned this for about 2 months now. And then this one I've owned it for 12 years. So let's start. Looking at the face here, this Aquaracer has a blue background with a few stripes on it. There's also two circles, one smaller circle and then an outer circle. That's describing the blue background here. The older watch also had a blue background, but I would have to say that there's no stripes on it. Let me see if the light can get the colors correctly. But the blue color is flat. There are no stripes on it, but they both have a metallic shine. Now the hands on the watches are all white. So you see the numbers here. Here I have a triangle, and all the numbers showing the 5-minute increments are there. There are a few highlights that are in orange, the words Calibre 5 and the tip of the second hand. But the minute and the hour and the minute hands are very prominent in this watch. In the older watch, which was much smaller, it had a big number 12 at the top, and all the 5-minute increments were in dashes. The second hand had a circle at the end, and that was in white. So it's it's a pretty good-looking watch, but you can really see that there's a difference in size here. This one's obviously much bigger, and then this is the smaller watch about 12 years ago. I think it's the growing trend to wear larger watches now. The movement here has changed from this watch. It's supposed to be a Calibre 5, so supposedly it's a much smoother movement. I don't really know how to describe the technical details behind that, but they both seem to move pretty well in my opinion. But from what I understand, this is supposed to be a smoother motion. The other difference in the face is for the date field, I have a magnifying glass here. Hopefully you can see that. It's there right now. And then this one, I've got the date wrong on this watch, but it's actually I got the date right. It does not have a magnifying glass on it, but you can still see the hand clearly. Looking at the bezel, when I got this watch a few years ago, I wanted to keep it as a silver bezel, and they had options for having a ceramic color on it at the time, but I wanted to have one that was a little discreet. And you can see this is the motion of the bezel of my older watch. It has a mark here at the top for the 12, and then in increments of 10, it shows 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then every minute was marked off this way. Now a bezel can only turn one way. It cannot turn clockwise. It can only turn counterclockwise. That's because it's primarily used for diving purposes. But for example, if I were to dive into the ocean right now at 12:46, I would move the bezel here, 12:46, and then if I knew that I had about 40 minutes of air in my tank, I would wait until the minute hand went up to 40 or close to it, and that's when I'd know I'd have to start surfacing. It wouldn't go the other way because that would be a negative impact on the amount of time that you think you have, by making it seem like you have a lot more time and you might run out of air. But if I accidentally hit it while I'm diving, it'll still mean that the 40 hand goes closer, meaning that I'll be in the water less time than I normally have. With the newer watch, it's a bezel that I chose with a blue ceramic color that matches the background of the watch. It's got a lot more of a design to it. You can see that the top hand is the top 12 mark. The beginning mark is marked with a triangle with a little white dot in it, and again, the increments of 10 minutes are shown here, and with dashes here. But I noticed that the minute increments are only marked for the first 15 minutes. For the next hour or so, they left those out. You can still depend on the minute increments inside the face of the watch to tell exactly what minutes you are in. But I think that was probably a choice for design for them. Anyways, the size of this watch, I believe, is 41 millimeters. And then this watch was a lot smaller, so you can sort of see them side to side to see that this watch is a lot bigger. But I forget how they measure that measurement from 41 millimeters, but this one is a couple of millimeters smaller. Anyways, the other difference you can see is because of the size, the shape of the watches are similar in design, and they look similar. You can tell they're both Tag Aquaracers. The band of the old watch had a slight tapering angle here, but it had 3 different pieces for every link that you had, so it allowed you to add or subtract links to size it properly. But as it approached the clasp, it tapered off. I think every link was also similarly sized, the same amount of length. The new watch also has 3 pieces per link. I would say that these links are a lot larger than the older watch. It does taper as well, and as you approach the clasp, you can have a smaller link. I believe this is what they call the half link that allows you to size it properly. I've had this for a couple of months now, so I had it sized a couple of weeks ago. I had it sized when I bought it, I mean. The other difference that I noticed about these 2 watches is the clasp is different. So this was my old watch, and you can see that it was sort of traditional with 2 pieces of metal that were flat, and when you try to wear it, you closed on this, snapped it that way, and then locked it in with this little contraption here. There was a little design to follow the pattern of the clasp. You can see that here. And sort of like a little logo of Tag there, not quite drawn, just sort of like the outline of the logo. So this is the way it fits, the old watch fit on my wrist. I've gained some weight since I've worn it, and I've got this extra links on right now. They have these extra links for when you go scuba diving. You can unclasp them or clasp them, but when you're scuba diving and you wear a wetsuit or a dry suit, you want those extra links so that you can wear them outside of your suit on your wrist. But when I wear it to work, that's the way it fits right now. I like to keep it loose. I like to fit almost a finger here under the link. I find that if I have it a little tighter than that, in the morning it starts off a little loose, but in the afternoon or evening when I get back from work, it starts to tighten up and it leaves a mark on my skin. So I've had to resize this once or twice as I've gained weight over time, over the 12 years that I've worn this watch. So that's the way it moves. Oh, by the way, the way the bezel moves is one point of comparison. That's the way the bezel moves, and it makes a fairly loud click with the old watch. You'll notice the difference when I put the new watch on and try to click the bezel around. But I usually like it to swivel around my wrist like that. I don't want it to fall more than 2 inches from where my wrist bone is here. But I wear my watch fairly loose. Some of you may disagree, and some of you may like to wear it tighter, but that's how I have sized my watch. The new watch fits like this. It's a little larger, and by the way, the clasp of this differs. So comparing the clasps, this clasp I described earlier, this clasp has changed with this watch. Instead of having 2 flat metallic pieces, they've got 2 metal pieces here. This is a very thin piece, and then this one has 2 pieces with a gap in the middle. And the way it fits is you're able to close it so that it only fits 1 piece. I guess I would assume that this allows those 2 folding metal pieces to be smaller because they overlap with each other. And there's no more design here on the outside of the clasp. There's no more pattern that I had in the old watch, and no more extra latch to lock it in. Instead, what I have are these 2 pieces where I can open and close the watch that way. I find that it's easier to put on that way. It's quicker, and then when you take it on, there's one motion. You just have to pinch the outer sides. When I first bought this watch, the person who sold it to me set it a little tight. It was less than a finger here. And I found it to be too tight for me. Towards the end of the day, it would leave a lot of impressions on my wrist, and it just wasn't as comfortable. Also, since it was a new watch, there were a lot of edges that were fairly sharp and hadn't been worn out, so when it was very tight, it wasn't as comfortable. I had to go back and have it resized to have like a little bit more of a gap, and I find this, again, it's a little loose right now because but I prefer it this way because if I'm in a long meeting at work, I don't have a situation where it's starting to stifle, it's starting to tighten too much on my wrist. Now I mentioned I would turn the bezel here. I find that this bezel sounds smoother. The clicks are not as loud, but it just feels smoother to me. I don't know if that's the new design or if it's a newer watch. This is an old watch that I've had for 12 years. I had it reconditioned recently, so it looks like it's fairly new. But that was the way the old bezel sounded. It just seems that to go through a full circle, the old watch did not have as many clicks as this new watch does. And then this bezel is just a lot larger and it's easier to hold. So anyways, that's my comparison of these two watches. I hope that was helpful for any of you who are Tag Aquaracer fans and are thinking about upgrading from an old one to a new one, or just looking to buy one of these two models. I hope that it allows you to compare the two. You know, the biggest differences I see are, you know, the design to the face, the bezel, the size of the watch, and the clasp. But I'd have to say I love both of these watches, and I've worn this watch almost every day for the last 12 years. And since I've bought this one has been my favorite watch to wear, but I think I'm going to be using this one when I go to the beach or if I go kayak fishing. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please click like or subscribe to my channel. I hope to make a few more comparisons of products like this or unboxings of new products. Thank you, and